Hello all and welcome to today's Virtual Arena. Joining me today is Wissam Khuory, Head of International over at Finastra, and we're going to be talking about some absolutely exciting topics, namely Fintech for good and how the finance industry is going to change to finally allow everyone to be a part of it. So without further ado, Wissam, thank you for joining me. Can you give me a bit of an introduction to yourself and your role at Finastra?
Sure. Thank you very much, Doug. So my name is Wissam Khuory. I'm the head of international at Finastra, taking care of Finastra's business growth across EMEA and Asia Pac, so anything outside the States. And I'm extremely happy to be here with you because today we're going to be discussing how can we redefine the future of finance and what are we doing at Finastra in that category, being a major player in fintech worldwide.
Yeah, I mean, it's such an exciting topic because the industry has really placed itself into a way that it can springboard into massive things. So, I mean, to kind of take a step back, how do you define finance for good? And to you, is it to improve financial services and literacy, or would you classify it as just disrupting the current financial system that we currently have?
Perfect. And the key word here is not only defining, but redefining finance for good. For good, it means forever, and for good in order to make sure that we do well as organizations by doing good in our societies and economies. And yes, I think that it's not up to me or up to anybody else. The market is disrupted in financial services, and it's disrupted for good, and definitely there is a room for improvement in financial services. For us, redefining finance is about helping our customers to accelerate through change, which is happening now, as well as to create positive outcomes for millions of people around the world. So we've always spoken about open finance, open banking, platformification, and we have been doing that for the past 2 years. But if anything, the future has accelerated, especially now after the COVID situation. And now the push for open cloud, for platform, for marketplace has really pushing the future for finance, and this time for good. So these changes are not intermediate changes. These changes as a market will have to happen and will happen forever. Our CEO, Simon Paris, talks about redefining finance as deepening the role of financial services to help millions of individuals, small and medium enterprises, and communities to navigate the future.
Excellent. Well, I mean, with that in mind, opening up finance to all those small, medium businesses that Simon mentioned, and all these individuals. If you look at Fintech for Good being categorized as improving access to finance, over the last 10 years, would you say it's been successful?
There's lots of progressions that happened through 10 years till now. And yeah, that's a problem which didn't arise only today. It has been accelerated today. So for example, to give you an idea about open banking is a very important pillar to be able to really open finance. It starts with open banking, open APIs, open communication between banks and third parties and between banks. But more has to be done now. And it has to be done with a huge focus on how I can do this in the right way forever, taking into account the new dynamics that have come up, especially during COVID, with a huge focus on the existing challenges that are already in finance, such as financial inclusion, or such as to narrow the gap for SME funding, which we all know there's a huge gap in funding. And I think the acceleration via digitalization is happening now, and it will all help to redefine how we can really utilize technology through open banking, open APIs, open platform, in order to be able to at least cover the challenges that we know of, such as financial inclusion, and to close the gap on funding to small and medium enterprises.
Definitely. And if we follow that chain of thought when it comes to small, medium enterprises, obviously they've been hit probably the hardest as a result of the pandemic. Now, I think it's fair to say that business banking for small businesses has always been lackluster. So, I mean, would you say that the pandemic has finally made business banking for small businesses actually an actual financial service, can we say?
It has to. Otherwise, we're going to face lots of issues. As you know, as you have mentioned, even the pandemic has created lots of stress on the financial economy in general, and especially on SMEs. SMEs rely on cash. SMEs do not have history for credit. SMEs has always been an issue in terms of funding. When you look at the entire value chain of, let's say, on trade, all the way from the farmer all the way to the retailer, this entire value chain has gaps in funding due to the size of the SMEs. And these SMEs have little room to be able to either negotiate better rates or even get access to funds. So if you want to narrow it down and you think how would that help now with the redefining the future, I can look at probably two issues that we're aware of on the SME funding. Number one, it's expensive for financial institutions to be able to give loans to smaller organizations. The second problem is that the SMEs do not have the data required in order to run the credit models or lending models that are used to big banks to be able to assess their credit worthiness, the risk appetite, and all the rest. So only with these two things, if you look at that, technology or Finastra can really help, along with its partner and ecosystems, to cover these two areas. So utilizing technology, latest technology, going to cloud, for example, using machine learning, using AI, the entire purpose of a technology is to be more efficient, to allow our clients to be able to provide a service at less cost. So that ticks that box. The second one, when we're discussing about the SMEs and their access to funding, now with the power of data that is underutilized by the banking sector, if you think of it, we can have access to model the credit worthiness of an SME in so many other different ways than just looking at their balance sheet and income statements and assess their credit ratios and believe if they are good or what's the risk taken if we give credit. By utilizing really the mega data, which is available everywhere, you can find models that talk into the nature of the business, that talks into the experience of the people and of the organization, that talks into the previous successes, that talks into the gaps in the market. So the data is there, but it's not fully utilized. So having a deep dive into the data and analytics, you will be able to change the way you provide your approvals as a financial institutions for the SME market. So only with these two examples, we truly believe that we need to look at the future of finance in a different way, try to utilize the technology and the multiple players through a very collaborative approach to be able to narrow that gap of funding, and not only to give credit to the direct client of the bank, but to be able to provide that credit to the entire chain, starting, as I said before, from the farmer all the way to the retailer who really takes a loan from the bank in order to do his business. And we have many examples that I can share with you that we are doing with our partners in order to, if you like, contribute better to the SME funding gap.
That's absolutely brilliant. And I mean, kind of, if I can, continue with that, talking about those services that you provide. What new technologies, you kind of touched on it with this chain technology and obviously AI. What new technologies do you think will be key in the coming years when it comes to redefining finance for good?
Perfect. Excellent question. And I love this question because everybody talks about it and we never put really our finger on it. And let me say it straight out. We are not looking into using any creative technology that doesn't exist today. And that's the beauty of it. The technology that allows us to redefine the future of finance, in theory, it exists. And it's being used by other industries. Look at the, let's say, retailers, look at the e-commerce. So what we're trying to do is to bring that technology in a very secure, very rational way to the banking sector, along with the parties within that banking sector, which includes the regulators, which includes the bank themselves, and the history of banking and the solutions that they have, and add these technologies on top of what they have in order to provide these new services. In my point of view, not to avoid answering their question, I prefer not to talk about, let's say, AI or machine learning or data analytics. They are there. But how do we achieve this in the financial technology? In my point of view, we've touched on it. Number one, open banking, open APIs, open collaboration, sharing of data. Throughout our years, we all know that banks used to cannibalize their data. So if you're a client of bank, nobody else has access to this data. So now if the banks start sharing through open banking, through a very consistent, reliable, regulated way, we can use this data in order to come up with more insights and intelligence. So I think that number one, open banking. Number two, in this new wave of how we're going to use technology, today, if I want to sum it up without the extra stuff, if you like, what does a bank want? Two things: make more money and save on cost.
Yeah.
And in both of these two main objectives, forget risk, forget compliance, forget everything else, technology is the main enabler to be able to help them achieve both of these objectives. On top of the two things mentioned, which is optimized cost and attracting new revenue, obviously we should not lose sight of the importance of enhancing customer experience. And especially post what's happened now on COVID and the rush for the end user to ask for similar experiences that they get from where they interact on the retail side of the business and e-commerce. Customer experience is also extremely important point for banks to address and make sure that they are riding that way. So for us, moving forward, it has to be moving to a platform, moving to a place where financial services, along with smaller fintechs, can all come together in a marketplace where they can exchange experiences and provide more insights, more data, more user-friendly interfaces with their client base who is already used to get that service from a non-FI or non-banking environment. So that would be, for me, platform, marketplace, utilization of existing technology such as blockchain, such as cloud, because moving to cloud really talks about cost efficiencies. You know, as I said, AI gives you data analytics, and moving to blockchain. All of these technologies will be relevant in order to be able to move to the new digital world of banking.
That's absolutely brilliant. I mean, if I could kind of follow on from your platformification point, we've seen one of the biggest changes as a result of open banking and the fintech industry as a whole has been collaboration with the banks. And it's something I always think of when I think of Finastra as having that platform and that ability to collaborate. I mean, so how can banks leverage various fintechs around the world to improve what they offer to their customers without losing that element of them being their bank and it's their products that they're selling?
Perfect, excellent. And this is, again, a very good question. And let me do a small introduction, then I'll answer the question. The banks need to offer services to the end user, not necessarily their own services. The beauty of it is that with open banking, with a very collaborative approach, they will be able to offer third-party services through their interaction and communication with the bank to become a one-stop shop. That will help the usability from the end user. At the same time, it will increase the revenue that's coming from these clients. Now, let me answer you, how do they use fintech to provide this? And that's why I believe it's a very good question. Today, the biggest problem, the problem statement of a bank is that there are new entrants into the market which are not necessarily traditional competitors or banks. We all know that technology providers by themselves are becoming banks. So look at the big IT companies that are entering into payments, that are entering into lending. They are new entrants that the banks were never competing with. So initially, they were thinking that this is the competitor. Over the past 2 years, banks have realized that the only way to ride that wave is to collaborate with these fintechs. Rather than putting him at arm's length, now let's come work together, provide a single service to our clients where it benefits you and it benefits us. And this is where the concept of platform came from. Banks can participate in this journey on so many ways. They can partner with fintechs by doing direct investment. They can buy their own fintechs. They can launch their own fintechs. They can subscribe to certain capital in smaller fintech companies. But also, they can open up their systems, utilize technologies such as Finastra's, where they give them the access to really have on the other side of that platform multiple of fintechs that they can interact with, and they can work together to provide a service to the end user by as simply as, the best way to describe it is like by having an app on your phone where you can download that app and then provide it to your end users to be able to use that. And I want to give you a couple of examples just to make it a bit concrete. Not long ago, maybe weeks or 10 days from now, we've announced a press release where, for example, Asia Development Bank is working with us and with MasterCard in order to provide a new solution to cater for SME gaps, SME digitalization through trade, through supply chain finance, and to be able to provide more credit and more financing throughout the value chain of trade. No, ADB alone cannot do that. You know, ADB, they have the money, they have the funding. MasterCards, they have the contacts, we have the technology. So by us, the three of us coming together, we will be able to have further reach, faster reach, utilizing the latest technologies in a cost-effective way to be able to provide more access to the SMEs and the wholesalers to credit. And this is, for example, just one way. Another example I mentioned is microfinance. Microfinance in countries such as Kenya, for example. We're doing something which we're calling Trust Machine. Trust Machine is bringing together 3-4 parties in order to provide a better solution for SMEs, again, where we're working with universities, we're working with existing fintechs that have already platform connecting all the wholesalers together to be able to find a new model using our partners in assessing the credit worthiness of an SME, using the platform, which is another partner for Trust Machine, to have access to these SMEs, and using a bank to be able to provide that services. Only if we look at this initiative, which is a Trust Machine in Kenya, we're looking into solving 1% of the $19 billion of funding gap in SMEs.
Wow.
If we only get 1% of that, that's around 50,000 new jobs.
That's incredible.
That's how we believe we are redefining finance for good.
Obviously, a lot of collaboration starts with a bank talking to an early stage fintech and maybe collaborating, face to face, getting to know them, and we're talking about maybe 2 years to finally end up collaborating through face-to-face meetings and everything like that. With social distancing and the pandemic worldwide, how are we going to see banks able to collaborate like they used to? Is that going to have to change, and how can we change that?
Perfect. What we need, short answer, is an intermediary, and this is where Finastra plays in. So what we created at Finastra, and we've been bragging about it, and now let's talk about it, is our own platform, which is fusionfabric.cloud. We have created a platform utilizing obviously the latest technologies. In that platform, if the best way to describe it, divided into 3. One part of that platform is allowing these small fintechs that you've mentioned, even developers from the bank themselves, any system integrator, university students, you and I, if we know coding, that can develop an app utilizing the open APIs of our solutions, that they can have access to it remotely, obviously, where they can log in, have access to the APIs, build their own app, which is a matter of not 6 months or 2 years, which could be a matter of days. And I'll come back to you and give you an example how we did that with other institutions within days. So this is the first part. So it's a development platform with access to our solutions via open APIs, latest technology. The second one, fusionfabric.cloud, is hosted on cloud, and we use Azure as our partner. So it has all the leverage, all the added value of using cloud, all the efficiencies, all the effectiveness of the cloud. And the third part is a store. So once they develop that app, they manage it in the cloud, they can put it on the store, where these banks, rather than go themselves, like you've mentioned in your question, and shop for fintechs, actually using that platform, they will have access to all these fintechs. Again, with the example of the phone, it's like searching on the App Store for what apps are available. And then these apps are already integrated, they're already using the logic and APIs, are already on cloud. They can actually, bit oversimplifying, but not that much, is click, download, and use.
Sure.
And it's as simple as that. Last thing I want to mention, I said in days, not in months. If you look at the evolution of financial technology, and now we call it financial technology, previously we were called financial projects. We started by going to a bank, hearing their requirements, and try to build something for them. And that was a project base. As this has evolved, we created a solution as an industry, or even not even a solution, a product. And we start selling that product to the financial institutions. And then we put 2-3 products together and we call them solution. Now we have evolved to a platform marketplace. So this is the evolution, if you like, of providing solutions. Initially, the project could take 3 years or 2 years because we've never done it before. The bank is giving us the requirements, you name it. Now, fast forward to today, with open APIs, you've said it, a company, small company of 10 employees can actually develop an app very quickly. What we do with our clients these days, using FusionFabric.cloud, is we come together, and sometimes they bring even their own customers, and we go through a workshop using the design thinking methodology where we can build together use cases that make sense, i.e. they can deliver quite fast, they are easily achievable, they are commercially viable. And when we do 90-day sprints with these institutions, at the end of the 90-day sprints, we have a ready-made product ready for launch.
Wow.
So things have changed. And utilizing these technologies in the banking sector is a must if we want to ride that wave and if we want to add positive output to the financial institutions and to the societies that we are living in. Since we are doing it, my dream, if you like, or my aspiration, let's do it right this time.
Yeah.
Let's collaborate all together, make sure that we are doing it right. And more importantly, since we are moving in a very fast pace, let's not leave anybody behind. Take care of financial inclusion, take care of narrowing the gap in SME, get the money supply, get the liquidity up and running, at the same time ride the wave of digitalization.
Interesting. So, I mean, obviously, if the banks can now look to implement these new strategies realistically within 3 months, that's incredible. But what does that mean to improve financial inclusion and fintech for good? How can they use Finastra to enable this change and really perspective when it comes to finance?
What they can use Finastra is use the power of technology and use the power of the ecosystem and partners. And I'm saying this for your listeners that probably have listened to other people from other organizations saying open banking, saying platform, saying all the rest. I'm telling you the exact, if I would put it, the unique value proposition that Finastra brings to these financial institutions. Not only we come in with our technology, not only we come in with our domain expertise, where we are experts in every vertical of the financial institution, be it core banking, be it treasury capital markets, be it trade, be it payments, be it cash management, be it asset management. Not only that, we're coming in with the platform that I've just described and our partners and ecosystems. So in my belief is that how we can help these financial institutions is fast time to market, number one. Number two, with the big banks that already have existing systems, we are coming with a technology that does not require rip and replace, but it requires to add a layer on top of what they have. And this is very important for large banks because changing a system or core banking, as you can imagine, is years of projects, not months. So we bring that layer on top. And then we bring in our partners who can bring added value almost immediately, depending on the requirements of that financial institutions and the aspirations they're trying to achieve in either going through new revenue streams and new markets or in being more efficient and optimize their cost as they move forward in the coming 12 months.
Now, we've talked about what's going to be new, what's going to change for the banks and the finance industry. But what's on the cards, crystal ball time here. What's on the cards for Finastra? What are you looking to bring out now that you've shortened these workflows to almost 3 months?
Look, now it is truly the time to redefine finance for good. And this time, as I said, let's do it right and let's not leave anybody behind. Let's be more inclusive and let's provide equality in that industry on an individual basis, on SME basis, and also to bring that industry up to speed to catch up with other industry. We believe that the future will be collaborative, with financial institutions partnering very closely with fintechs in order to, if you like, co-create solutions that can really impact the lives of millions around the world. The pandemic has truly brought the future forward and have accelerated the drive for digital transformation within the financial institutions. And I think now is the time to enact on these changes across the industry to support individuals, SMEs, and communities in general.
Absolutely brilliant. Well, Wissam, thank you so much. I think that's all we've got time for. And thank you very much for joining me. It was really insightful. And it's a topic that's really close to my heart. I hope you had a good time yourself.
I had a very pleasant time. Thank you very much, Doug, for this interview and for your questions. And I'm really excited on the future of finance. And I hope that we will all be putting our effort to do well by doing good in this market.
Definitely, I hope so too. And to all our viewers, thank you so much for watching. You can catch the rest of the series and much more over at www.fintechf.com and of course YouTube and LinkedIn. So make sure to see us then. Goodbye.